And there is an important difference between what we need and what we want. Indigenous theologies of abundance give us some healthy boundaries to practice in community, to give and act with trust in abundance while remaining responsible stewards of our shared earth. Aboriginal Australian writer and activist Samantha Nolan Smith writes, Indigenous people around the world tell a remarkably similar story about a state of nature that is free, abundant, open, and trusting, where everything one needs is provided for, where one only takes what is needed, and where time is allowed for replenishment of resources. Capitalism and consumerism are a grotesque, selfish distortion of what yes and abundant living is all about. Christianity's theology of abundance also assumes communal responsibility. The first-century prophet Jesus was outspoken about generosity. In the Gospels, according to Matthew and Luke, Jesus says, "Sell your possessions and give alms. Do not keep striving for what you are to eat, what you are to drink, and do not keep worrying, for it is the nations of the world that strive after these things, and your God knows you need them." For those of us who have not always lived a life of plenty, this sounds like very bad advice. Give away everything we have? Don't think about where our next meal is coming from? Are we really supposed to survive on faith alone? But what Jesus is doing here is distinguishing between the nations of the world that strive after all these material things, strive after want, and the community of faith, which strives to fulfill needs. In religious community, we can create an environment of abundance by providing for one another, in stark contrast to the materialistic and egocentric culture around us. Whatever we need, our God knows we need it. And as Father Rohr said in our reading, we believe that we are, first of all, a people, God's movement in history. We, you, are the hearts and hands of the divine, active and empowered in this world. Here we are, send us. Because we need each other, and our communities need us. Some may say that the church is dying, but I only think the current church, the status quo church, is dying. I believe that Unitarian Universalism is resilient, adaptable, true, and that we are, right now, figuring out our next yes and of our living tradition. The world is not transformed into beloved community, and thus it still needs us, our heavenly vision, our next yes and form. So what is next? Well, as the phrase goes, what would Jesus do? What would Jesus and all the prophets do? What would God do? What would love do? What would the best versions of ourselves do? You may even find yourself sometimes wondering, what would Reverend Rebecca do? And that's not a bad idea. She's brilliant, compassionate, thoughtful, experienced, learned. I know you're at the beginning of saying yes and to each other for many years to come, but I'm sure you've already marveled at her skills and her character, as she has marveled at your hospitality, your arts, your commitment to transformation. But Reverend Rebecca isn't a saint. I've known her many years. In fact, none of us are saints. We are all learned and learning. We are drawing our circle and our hearts wider. We need one another to heal and to move forward. So I encourage you to ask yourselves, as you move forward, what would we do? What would we, the Unitarian Church in Charleston, inspired by love to serve, what would we do? And then please listen to one another. Reflect with the head, the heart, and the spirit, and strive to say yes and. If they ask what we did best, tell them we said yes and to love. Blessed be, and amen.
this one on? That one on? Try that one again.
Hello? Closer? No? Yes? Yes. I can't get much closer. I won't be able to read this. Thank you. Hi, I'm Hillary Hutchinson. I'm current chair of your vestry board, and I represent all of the members of your vestry board this afternoon. There is no right more precious to a free congregation than that of choosing its own minister. By the same token, no right is more precious to a Unitarian minister than that of choosing the congregation she will serve. On May 2nd, 2021, the members of the Unitarian Church in Charleston voted to call Reverend Rebecca Hines to be our 25th settled minister, and she said, yes.
And.
We are gathered today to honor this call and formally enter into covenant with her, the one whom we have freely chosen and who has freely chosen us. Reverend Rebecca has come forward. So, will the members of the Unitarian Church in Charleston please rise in body or in spirit? Unitarian Church members, will you walk with Reverend Rebecca in the ways of spirit, truth, justice, and love? Will you partner with her in this ministry and work with her to fulfill our mission and make it real in the world? Yes, we will. We, the members of the Unitarian Church in Charleston, do hereby install you, Reverend Rebecca Hines, as minister of our church. For our part, we offer you in the shared ministry. We offer you a free pulpit, the cooperation of our hearts and hands, and our resolute goodwill as you take up your work among us. Reverend Rebecca, we have called you to live amongst us, to make our concerns your concerns, and to lead us, with the help of God, in the ways of hope, peace, and justice. Will you accept the invitation of this congregation to its ministry?
Yes, I will. With joy and a deep sense of responsibility, and with gratitude for your confidence, I take up the ministry to which you have called me. I pledge to maintain the freedom of the pulpit, to speak truth in love, to fulfill the many duties of ministry, and to embody with you the principles of our free faith.
Will all who have not yet risen, colleagues, family, and friends, please rise in spirit or in body? Do all gathered here today hereby affirm this installation and this ministry? Yes, we do. May congregation and minister both be blessed with strength and wisdom in the years of hard and holy work ahead.
Will your heart and soul say yes? Will your spirit still say yes? There is more that is required of thee. Will your heart and soul say yes. Now will your heart and soul say yes? Will your spirit still say yes? Yes. And if I told you what I really need, would your heart and soul say yes? Now will your heart and soul say yes? Will your spirit still say yes? Now there is more that is required of thee. Will your heart and soul say yes? Now will your heart and soul say yes? Will your spirit still say yes? And if I told you what I really need, would your heart and soul say yes? So just say yes. Say yes. Say yes. Say yes. 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 Open your heart and say yes. Open your mind and say yes. Say yes without fear. Say yes right here. Yes. Oh, say yes. 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 Say yes. 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 Now there is more that is required of thee. There is more that is required of thee, calling you higher. There is more that is required of thee. There is more that is required of thee. I'll just say yes. I'll just say yes. There is more that is required of thee. There is more that is required of thee. So let your heart say,
Hi, everybody. My name is Sam. I'm from Memphis, and it falls to me today to deliver Rebecca's charge. I am Rebecca's colleague and seminary classmate, but I'm more importantly, I'm blessed to say, not quite yet, that I am Rebecca's bro, and that Rebecca is my bro. This is a title we bestowed on each other in seminary, and so it is in this capacity that I invite my bro to come forward while I deliver your charge. Rebecca, first I charge you to love this congregation, and I charge you to tell these people that you love them, because most of ministry is finding new ways to tell people that they are loved, that they're loved by you, that they're loved by the higher powers in which they believe, and that they are deserving of love from each other. I charge you to tell them that you love them directly and often, and to tell them indirectly through sermons, through pastoral care, through justice work, through board meetings. I charge you to tell them that you love them even when you don't like them. I charge you to tell them that you love them even when they don't like you. Because love doesn't mean always saying yes. Often love means being willing to say no. When things get difficult and when things are going well, as of course they usually will, I charge you to tell them that you love them and to find ways to do it that they will be able to hear. Second, I charge you to be a bold voice for justice and liberation in Charleston, in the South, in our country, and in our wider world, as Unitarian Universalists living in very red states. This is not always easy. Southern Unitarian Universalists can sometimes feel a pressure to try and fly under the radar. Right, to try and not get the big, powerful, more conservative elements of our communities mad at us. Or if we do some justice work, to only take it so far, right? We can feel pressure to prioritize staying out of trouble over being a loud voice for love, justice, and compassion, because that makes things easier. I charge you to never bow to that pressure. I charge you to get in trouble, what John Lewis would call good trouble, and to work in the public square to promote the values that Unitarian Universalists hold dear, even when it would be much easier to just step aside and stay out of trouble. Third, I charge you to take care of and support the next generation of UU clergy and to make room for them even if they show up before you are ready to go. Rebecca, you and I are part of a pretty great cohort, if I do say so myself. Our generation of UU clergy is bold and brilliant, aren't we? And we have, and modest. And we have big plans for our faith movement, and we have big plans for the congregations we serve. And I imagine if we work really hard and we're really lucky, we will get maybe a third of the way finished with what we'd like to do. And then another generation of UU leaders will arrive, and there is a very good chance that they will look at everything that we've done and they'll say, no, this has all got to go. And our job at that time is to welcome them. And if we can't bring ourselves to help them take it all down, then our job is to get out of their way. And finally, Rebecca, it's traditional, right, to have the last thing you charge a minister with, right, to charge them to take care of themselves. Right, we say you have to take care of yourself or you won't be any good to your congregation, right? You have to have good self-care. Good ministers, we say, are the ones with good self-care. We say that and it's wrong. It's wrong. And I'll tell you why it's wrong. The great Rabbi Abraham Heschel said that the purpose of the Sabbath is not to rest from the week. Rather, he said, the purpose of the week is to get you ready for the Sabbath. So yes, I charge you to care for yourself and your family, to spend time with Casey and Madeline, and to spend time doing the things you love, but not just as a means so you can go do more work. Not just as a box you must check so that you can be a more productive minister. I charge you to care for yourself. I charge you to live a life that is beautiful and full, and that does not revolve entirely around your job for no other reason than because you are an exceptional person who deserves to live an exceptional life. I charge you to care for yourself because you are a person who deserves to be cared for, and that is reason enough. Rebecca, my friend, my bro, congratulations and blessings.
Okay, it's my turn and your turn. I'm Roger, and I come from Rebecca's homeland. So Reverend Rebecca and I have something in common that's pretty rare. We have both been lucky enough to serve a congregation that was previously served by Reverend Jacqueline Collins. There are not many of us. In my case, I was the first settled minister of the Fox Valley UU Fellowship in Appleton, Wisconsin, right after Jacqueline served there as extension minister. The UU Association Extension Ministry Program helped little congregations ramp up financially and systemically so that they could afford and work well with professional ministers. It worked beautifully in Appleton, and I served there for 25 years, during which the congregation went from small to mid-sized to a large congregation of 700. And when asked how that happened, my answer would always include, well, the most important thing that happened in my ministry happened before I went there, before I even heard of it. And it was the hard work of Reverend Jacqueline and that congregation to set the stage for all that followed. So Jacqueline and all of you who worked with her in your shared ministry with her and your other ministers over the past 17 years or so since she retired, you have set the stage for this next bright chapter of this historic church. So a few years ago, you realized, I'm guessing, that your governance system wasn't really working quite as well as it used to when your church was smaller and that maybe you needed to make a change. And so you began making critical adaptations, and central to this was the transition to policy-based governance, which is a mouthful, and we did the same thing in Appleton, around 300 to 400 members, just like you. And if you're like a lot of you congregations, that whole thing is a little bit scary. It can feel like you're giving up all of your power as lay people to the minister and to the staff. And I'm here to tell all of you that is not the case. The point of policy-based governance isn't to give your minister unfettered power. The point is to align responsibility, authority, and accountability for everyone in the system, from the people who make coffee to the people who shovel the, oh wait, I'm in Charleston, to your minister. You all should know what your job is, what your responsibility is. You should all have the authority to actually accomplish it, and there should be some mechanism of accountability. And so when this is done skillfully, policy-based governance helps this happen, especially in congregations this size and larger. And so an essential task for your board, your vestry, who here is on the vestry right now? Okay, all of you who here might be on the vestry one day, a whole bunch of you, right? One of your jobs is to make sure that Rebecca's responsibilities are clear, that she has the authority to actually accomplish those responsibilities, and that you hold her accountable. It's actually quite simple. Governance, like a building, even as cool and amazing as this, is just a tool. And it's a tool for fulfilling your mission. So I charge all of you to relax about this stuff. Rebecca is not on a power trip. Trust each other. That came up in the opening regional lead welcome, which was so awesome. Trust is so important. Talk to each other. If you have a concern, share your concern directly and forthrightly. If it's with Rebecca, do that with Rebecca, not someone else. And remember, you are all on the same team. Thankfully, you have called a minister who, in every ounce of her being, understands that. Rebecca knows this whole thing will only work if you all are on the same team working together. And remember, no matter how long she's here, and maybe it'll be 25 years like I was in Appleton, she's temporary. You all are the church. At some point, she will move on into a next chapter of her life. And I hope and expect that all of you, her included, will look back on your time together with enormous satisfaction and joy. And one more thing while I'm up here, because I always have to do this. Treat your minister fairly and well. Compensation is one tangible sign of that. So is giving her space to nourish and to tend to her own soul and body in primary relationships, beginning with Casey and Madeline, in the spirit that Sam just talked about. And of course, don't just treat your minister well and compensate her well, but your whole staff. All right. So, Charleston friends, as Katie shared, and I know it's true because it's in your website, you have survived a bunch of stuff. Whoa. And as Katie shared, you've now just survived a second global pandemic. You are strong. You have the right minister for the next chapter. So, ready, set, go!
We have shared joyful promises with one another. We have entered into covenant, and we have said yes, and we will keep saying yes in a spirit of love over and over and over again. May this be so. May we do as the Spirit says do. Oh, and I love you.
Gotta do what the Spirit says do. Do what the Spirit says do. Do, oh yeah. You gotta do what the Spirit says do. You gotta do what the Spirit says do. You gotta do what the Spirit says do. What the Spirit says do. You gotta do, oh Lord. You gotta sing. You gotta sing. You gotta sing. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. When the Spirit says sing, you gotta sing, oh yeah. You gotta sing what the Spirit goes. You gotta stand. Stand when the Spirit says stand. Stand when the Spirit says